The Knights of the Zodiac Netflix remake has given fans a new take on the original Saint Seiya story. And this new version is somewhat more shortened and more condensed than the original was. And as a result, a number of characters who were present in the story originally have been completely cut from the Netflix remake. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about the characters that used to exist in the canonical original manga, but have been removed from the Netflix series. And then, in a future video, I'll be talking about those characters who were created for the original anime back in 1986, and they were not canonical to the manga, but had still been removed from the Netflix story. I will be progressing in chronological order and trying to use the names from the American edition of the manga so that it's a little bit easier to identify them. So, let's begin. The first character who is missing from the Netflix series is Maijo. And Maijo, or Maijo, is a childhood friend of Seiya and his sister Seika. To be more precise, she was raised in the same orphanage as Seiya and Seika, and then she's about the same age as Seiya, and when Seiya starts his training and Seika goes missing, Maijo stays behind at the orphanage. Then Seiya grows up, he obtains the Pegasus cloth, like in the Netflix series. He comes back to Japan and he starts looking for his sister straight away. So he gets in touch with Maijo, who in the meantime has started running the orphanage. And he asks her whereabouts of his sister, but she's completely unaware of what may have happened to her. Now, Maijo is a side character. She's not particularly important. She only makes a handful of appearances throughout the series, and it's mostly present in the first few volumes, but she completely disappears then after volume 6, if I remember correctly, and we never see her again until the end of the series, more or less. And she's an important character for Seiya because she's his childhood friend and is often considered a little bit of a crush of him, or rather she seems to have a little bit of a crush on Seiya. This is never particularly explored, it's just an impression, but they seem to be pretty close, and Seiya tends to visit her at the orphanage a few times before leaving for the sanctuary before the battle of the Zodiac passes. So she's not a big character, and I can see why she's been cut from the Netflix series, since in the Netflix version Seiya doesn't go back to the orphanage at all, but rather he goes to Sienna's underground bunker to begin the Galaxian Wars straight away. Maijo doesn't have any arc of importance in the original manga, and she's usually seen worrying about Seiya or hoping that he won't get injured. She only has one important appearance in Volume 7, which is her last appearance for a number of issues, as I've just said. And in Volume 7, she begs Seiya not to go to the sanctuary, but Seiya says that he wants to go because he prefers to live his own life and follow his own destiny, rather than behave like a normal 14-year-old and just follow fashions which he doesn't accept for himself. And that's about it. So this is it for Maijo. Then we have the Black Four. Now the Black Four are the four most powerful Black Knights, and they appear in Volume 3 of the original manga. And I've mentioned them before briefly in the video discussing the differences between the Netflix series and the original series. The Black Four are complete copycats of the main four characters, and they are Black Pegasus, Black Dragon, Black Swan, and Black Andromeda. And as I said, they look almost exactly the same as Seiya, Shiryu, Magnus, and Shun, and with the only exception that their clothes, their armors, are completely black. Now, their powers are a little bit different. Each of them fights with his counterpart and of course gets defeated. The first one to fight is Black Swan, who fights once against Shun and then twice against Cygnus. And he uses freezing powers, much like Magnus or Hyuga, but his cold air is nowhere near as powerful as Magnus. So he ends up being defeated in a reasonably easy battle. Black Pegasus fights against Seiya, and again he's not very powerful, but his Black Meteor Fist is capable of, in a sense, poisoning the victim, and Seiya suffers the effects of this attack for a while after the battle, until Shiryu then saves him. Black Andromeda uses chains, much like Shun, but his chains can turn into snakes, and the snakes would bite and ravage Shun's body. However, he only is a problem for Shun, because Shun is also trying to save Seiya from a cliff during his battle with Black Andromeda. But once Shun gets serious, he completely annihilates Black Andromeda and easily wins their fight. And finally, Black Dragon is the strongest of the four, and in the manga he actually has a twin who's blind and helps him in battle. And this works out for a while, because Black Dragon fights Shiryu in a cave, in a dark cave, and Shiryu is has a little bit of trouble to begin with, but he quickly finds out about the twin brother of Black Dragon and kills him. The battle between Shiryu and Black Dragon, however, is quite hard, and Shiryu has been severely weakened by having to offer his blood to repair Seiya's armor, so for a while he's losing, but he does manage to win by risking his life, and he would actually die because of the hemorrhage, if not for Black Dragon, who repents just before dying and saves Shiryu's life. And he's the first of a number of enemies who will redeem themselves at some point during the battles with the main characters. Now, unfortunately, the Netflix series has completely cut the Black Four, and instead we have somewhat anonymous Black Knights looking all exactly the same, except for Cassius. Also, the original Black Four don't use technology or don't use any aid. They fight by burning their cosmo, much like the main characters. The only difference is that they were not pure of heart enough or strong enough to obtain a regular cloth, and instead they obtained the black clothes, which are, as I said, a black evil counterpart of the original knight's clothes. Then next we have Django, and Django is a bit of a joke, really. He appears in the same flashback where Phoenix Nero meets Virgo Shaka for the first time. That's the flashback immediately after Nero obtains his Phoenix clothes. And in the original manga, Django is the leader of the Black Knights, whom Phoenix Nero defeats before taking command for himself. and he's not very strong or powerful. He uses a flame fist attack, but he's completely ridiculed and easily killed by Ikki. And in the original manga we only see him very briefly in volume 5 in a flashback, but as I said, he gets killed in just a few pages. Then up next we have a number of Silver Saints, and the first one is Babel, and Babel is the Centaur Knight. He comes alongside Misty, Morris and Asterion, and he's one of the first Silver Knights to fight against the main characters. And to be more precise, he fights against Cygnus Magnus of Hyoga, and his powers are fire-based, so we have a classic fire versus ice type of battle. In the original manga, he doesn't appear to be very strong. He seems to be able of burning Cygnus alive for a few moments, but Cygnus quickly freezes his fire and kills him with his first attack, so he's not very strong at all. In the anime, he actually seems much more powerful and is much more of a challenge for Hyoga. So much so that Hyoga needs the help of the Steel Knights, who are some characters exclusive to the anime. But as I said, in the manga he isn't very much of a problem for Hyoga to defeat. And for some reason he's been cut by the Netflix series. We see the other original Silver Knights, Misty, Morris and Asterion, but not him. Then up next is another Silver Knight whose name is Capella, and Capella is the Auriga Silver Knight, and Auriga is Latin for the charioteer. And Capella in the original manga attacks together with Perseus, Argol and Dante, the Cerberus Saint. He uses some very sharp discs to fight, and it sounds like a little bit of a joke, and again he's not a particularly strong Silver Knight, but he's potentially quite dangerous because his discs are extremely sharp and he can control them with his mind. In the manga he fights against Phoenix Ikki, and he seems to be winning, but instead he is killed by his own discs because Ikki attacks his mind with his Phoenix Demon Fist and makes him unable to control the discs, so Capella sees his own body being torn apart and cut apart by his discs, and then he eventually dies. Again, his battle is quite short, quite gory to be honest, and I suppose he's been cut because he wasn't deemed very important to keep in the Netflix series. And actually, he's also been cut from the Saint Seiya Awakening video game. Awakening is a quite popular mobile game at the moment, so there's really no justice for him. He does have a few fans, and occasionally you can see on Twitter Justice for Capella hashtag, but yeah, he's a minor character. And speaking of minor characters, the final three missing characters are a trio of Silver Knights who are Sirius, Darius and Argeti. Now, Sirius is the Great Dog Knight, Dios or Darius is the Fly Knight, and Argeti is the Hercules Knight. And they are a trio of Silver Knights who attack Seiya just moments before his battle with Ayoria. And they take advantage of the fact that Seiya is fighting without his clothes. But then Seiya wears the Sagittarius gold clothes and he completely pulverizes them. I mean, he tears them apart just by burning his Cosmo. So again, they are very minor characters, not particularly strong, or rather they never have a time to shine and they get killed in a moment. and their purpose seems to be proving how powerful Seiya is once he wears the golden cloth, rather than being a threat out of themselves. Seiya does mention that Argeti seems to be more powerful than Morris was, but we don't really know whether this statement is real or not. There is also another character who hasn't appeared yet, but it's still possible that she may appear in the future, so it's a little bit of a spoiler warning here. And this character is the Chameleon Knight June. And June is Sean's training partner in a way. She trained on the same island as Sean, and they share the same master. Now this is a little bit tricky because in the original series, as I've said a number of times, Sean is actually a male, Shun, and June seems to at least feel something towards him. It's hard to tell whether she's in love with him or whether she just cares deeply for him as a friend, but she certainly seems to feel something towards him. So much so that just before the battle at the sanctuary, she travels to Japan and tries to stop Shun from going. And Shun easily defeats her, but of course he doesn't really injure her or kill her, he just knocks her unconscious before leaving. She then appears in a couple of flashbacks, so it's possible that she will appear later on in a flashback moment. However, because Shun is a girl now, his entire relationship with June would be a little bit different. So it's hard to tell at the moment whether she will be kept or she will be cut from the remake. So that's about it. These are the characters who appeared in the original canonical manga but haven't appeared yet in the Netflix series. Maijo, the Black Four, Django, Babel, Capella, Sirius, Dios, Argeti, and perhaps June. And as I've said before, in another video I'll be talking about the ones who were created for the original anime and haven't been seen in the Netflix series yet. And that's about it. As usual, like, subscribe, talk about the channel and about Knights of the Zodiac with your friends, and take care of yourself. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.